2-week-old twin boy was earlier this week stolen at the Kenyatta National Hospital's waiting area. The mother of the twins had been taken for treatment at the hospital, and while waiting to see a doctor, her husband trusted two women to help hold the babies. One of the ladies disappeared with one twin. Now, fortunately for this man, the baby and his wife, the baby was found a day later, and police have arrested a suspect in connection with the incident. It is a dramatic twist to a story that has captured the imagination of Kenyans, resulting in an outpouring of online messages of support for the affected parents, Job Ouko and Jane Kerubo. Tonight on Citizen Weekend, we tell you how to keep your child safe and protected from potential abductors and what to do when a child is missing. So those images that you're seeing there are those of baby Prince after the twin was found, apparently after 24 hours having gone missing. That there is his father, Job Ouko, who we were expecting in studio but has since switched off his phone. So apologies for that. We don't know what happened, but we're expecting him here to give us a first-hand account of exactly what happened. And therefore, apologies, he will not be with us in studio. But even as we get into this conversation, it is important for you to know how you can protect your child, how to keep your child safe. And if you hear of a child that's missing, or if your child goes missing, what to do. With me in studio this evening is Irene Wali, who is a child protection specialist with Save the Children. Thanks for being with us. And we're also joined by Marianne Munyendo, who is the founder, Missing Child Kenya. Thanks, ladies, for being with us. I'll start with you, Mariana. Going back to the incident with Job Ouko at Kenyatta National Hospital, this is Monday, and in a span of 7 minutes, the baby is stolen by a stranger. So we're looking at, and from the reports that we have, we know that the woman who made away with the baby had been observing and monitoring her victims for close to 10 hours because this couple had apparently been at the Kenyatta National Hospital since Sunday and they were waiting to get treatment, but it was taking long. So from the reports we had, this particular suspect and the person who stole the baby had apparently been monitoring these two. So for the fact that Job gave his child to a stranger to hold, let's begin right there. Because sometimes you imagine if somebody has been in your space for a while, that it's safe to trust them with your child. Let's just briefly talk about the fact that in the first place, he gave the child to a stranger.
I would look at it from the point that, number one, every child deserves to be safe, and every parent does something that they think is really safe for their child. And in that situation, being under a lot of duress, you have 3-week-old twins, your wife is being wheeled into an admission room, and the circumstances sometimes become a bit too much that you quickly see a solution next to you and think that probably that will be comfortable. And secondly, again, we are Africans, and by nature we are very cultural. So we feel that there's a lot of ujamaa where a child belongs to the village. But sadly, time is changing, and that is not something that we can consider and take lightly.
Yeah.
Be wary of whoever that you give your child to, considering their safety first.
Yeah, but, you know, just aside from being wary of who you leave your child with, there's also the case of nannies who we leave our children under the care of. And, you know, how to vet these ladies. I mean, just basically doing the basics, which is taking a photocopy of the ID. Would that be sufficient? Would that then put you in a safe place to know that you're leaving your child under the care of a safe person?
Interestingly, the younger children trust the nannies more than they trust even the parents, because they spend a good portion of the day with the nannies. I would say first, it's hard to get a database, a national database that would vet these nannies. But I would advise parents, the first thing to start with is first get the identification details of this person that you're employing to be with your child. Then once they have come through, because sometimes we get emergencies, it's Sunday evening, the house help hasn't come back, you have to quickly get another one from the bureau. Make sure as soon as you get them, within 2 or 3 working days that they have been with you, check with them for their references. That would be where they come from, 2 other phone numbers. Then that would help beef up your confidence in terms of leaving someone to take care of your child.
Yeah, and Irene, now over to you. This child suffered a 24-hour ordeal under the hands of a stranger. When the baby was found, apparently the baby had been crying for hours. So just, you know, case scenario, you find your child is found. What's the first thing a parent should do when their child is found after going missing?
I think one of the most, what is most important is for people, the public, to know where to do the reporting. We have the police, we have the Department of Children's Services, and now the question, because looking at these cases and the rise of numbers, it's very important for us to know where to go and report these cases. How many of us even know the Children's Department exists? How many know that there's a structure within government, the formal structure that exists where you can go and report the case? Because currently, under the government, we have a very formal structure, which is well linked right from the grassroots to the national level. So what happens is that there's a system where there's connection in terms of reporting. So as a person, so it will be assumed, if the public is aware of the steps that you're supposed to take when your child goes missing, then it becomes very important that you also go back and confirm, because the assumption will be, with the public awareness, people know where to report. They have reported the case, so you need to go and now retract the steps. So it becomes very easy if the case had been reported to the police and the department.
Yeah, and before I get in, I just go back to what I had asked you, where to report. For this particular parent, he was fortunate in the sense that, you know, the story was aired across all media houses, and somebody actually remembered that this guy had given out his number live on air. But in some cases, couldn't this also lead to harm of the child, or even the child never being eventually found? The fact that the first impulse for him, the first instinct was to go to the media.
I think the public, it goes back to public awareness and knowledge on the issue of reporting, because at times we, as parents, we would want to think that's what is necessary for us to do, but we end up putting the child at risk. Looking, for instance, if we use this particular case, when this parent goes ahead and the information is broadcast through the media, it means that now the child is even more endangered. And if it was a kidnap and abduction, then this person knows that they are being traced, and there's high likelihood that they are going to retract. And the child now, it becomes even more difficult for us to be able to trace this kind of child.
Yeah, back to what to do the minute you're reunited with your child. What is the first thing a parent or a guardian should do?
I think one of the things, because one thing for parents who goes through such experiences, it's usually very traumatizing, because you've gone through so much. So there are various services that one can go through. You can go through counseling. I know counseling is not something that we've really embraced in our Kenyan culture, but apart from counseling, it's also good to just find someone you can talk to, because under such circumstances, it becomes so traumatizing, and at the same time, you need to move on, because chances are, if you go through such an experience, you'll tend to maybe hold on to your child and try to really protect that particular child.
But what about the child themselves? Because this child was under the hands of a stranger, so you don't know what has happened to the child. You don't know if there's any harm that has been inflicted on the child.
So I think also the issue of taking the child for medical services become very, very important. And most importantly, also linking, again what I said, linking with the Department of Children's Services, because they are the ones who do case management for such kind of cases, and they are able to follow up and ensure that the best services have been provided to this particular child.
So Mariana, from what we understand, these cases are on the rise. Who are these kidnappers? Who are the most notorious and what are their intentions? What is it that they're looking for when they abduct newborns or teenagers? Anybody under 18, really. Let's begin with who these people are.
I would say, number one, the kidnapper is not necessarily the end recipient of this child in this transaction, because now this becomes more like an illegal transaction. So I would look at it in terms of the reasons why children are kidnapped or children go missing. If we start with the Kenyatta case, we go back to the question of fertility, the issue of fertility and legacy in African culture. You would find someone would steal a child because they want to satisfy their womb's need, and they would also steal a child because they want to have a male heir for inheritance. Number two, child trafficking is on the rise. Children are sold for slavery into unwanted practices like even early childhood prostitution. The other thing is children sometimes get lost just because they're still young, and by their explorative nature, they're looking out for something, so they get lost. But if in that moment they encounter someone with ill intention, then someone is able to take advantage of that. Children also with special needs have a greater risk while being out there, because they're not able to navigate the environment like other children. I'll give an example of children with autism across the spectrum. If they're lost and probably nonverbal, then it would not be easy to help them retrace their family. So there's very many reasons why someone would want to steal a child. We have seen the rise of children on the street begging, and we have heard that there are cartels of people who take such children and use them for such purposes. So it's a wide range of things, but at the end point is there's a transactional bit to it, to transactional and cultural.
And how can we protect our children? Are there life-saving skills we should equip our children with? What are the basics? If you're dealing, say, with a child that can speak, any child above 4 years old is able to speak and is able to articulate themselves, albeit not too well. So what are some of the things that parents should tell their children as regards staying safe?
First and foremost, like I said, getting lost for that age is a natural experience, especially the younger ones. And even as adults these days, you still get lost, but you're just embarrassed to tell people you're lost. When that experience happens for your child, make sure that you handle it in a manner that should not scare them to navigate in the future. But second, important details like teaching your child their full names, where they live, where you work is very important when they're lost or something happens to them, and they can be able to be helped. As age progresses, a phone number, these days everybody has a phone number, a mobile phone number is very appropriate. Specific details like landmarks about where they live. If they leave the estate and you tell them there's a church near our estate, they might be able to say, I live near this church. We had a child who the only thing that they knew was their father works at Weetabix, and that helped. So information is very important in terms of helping them.
Irene, some of the things that, some of the pointers in terms of just keeping your child safe, and you know, interestingly, I hear some parents say very proudly, my child can't speak Swahili. I can't, I mean, they just don't speak Swahili nowadays, and they don't teach them Swahili in school. But then when it comes to actually empowering your child so that your child can stay safe, and the reason why I'm pointing that out is, imagine if your child can't speak Swahili and finds themselves in an environment where the only people that can communicate with them are speaking Swahili. So that already is a problem. So just give us some pointers. Marianne has given us some of the must-dos in terms of empowering your child on how to stay safe.
I think one of the things, first and foremost, I know one of the challenges, since Marianne works with the missing children, the issue of giving our children nicknames. Because a boy is called Baba. So they know they are called Baba, they don't know their parents' name. That becomes a challenge. Then the other issue, you'll find that most of the people who abduct children, they're not far off. They could be a relative, or it could be a stranger. And in an instance where you look at maybe children between the ages of 13 to 15, then these are not children who are easily abducted. Something must have been going on. So you'll find most times when you try to follow up on this case, you'll realize this child has been being groomed for quite some time, so that they can gain the trust of this adult. So these are some of the things that parents need to be aware of. Talk to your child. Get to know what is happening to them on a day-to-day, on a daily basis, just to hear what it is, what are their concerns. The other issue is on attention, because we know there's a particular age where children need attention. So you'll find, apart from children being abducted, there are other children who go missing simply because they've either been chased out of home or simply because they are runaways. So what is the problem? It goes back to the family. And then again, we always tell parents we need to be vigilant. We need to be aware that you cannot even trust your neighbors. You need to know who lives in your neighborhood. And in child protection, there's this thing we say, other than, the government can't be anywhere, can't be everywhere. There are certain structures within society that we need to enhance. For example, we have neighborhood associations. Most estates have this association, but you find that when most of the time when they talk, their agenda is usually security. But why don't we turn that so that other than talking about security, about the issues of the watchman, who stole what, that kind of thing, why don't we include the agenda of children within that and how to keep our children safe? I think that will really go a long way in trying to protecting our children.
Okay. When one comes across a missing child, what should they do? I want to go back to the case study of Job Ouko, who, when his child was finally found, when a well-wisher spotted this child and noticed that this mother obviously had not just given birth, she went ahead and called the father. The public were baying for the blood of this particular lady. When you come across a missing child, what to do?
First things first, assure the child, because when they're lost, they're scared. So also you shouldn't come off asking questions very harshly. A lot of the times we ask probably in Swahili, kwani ulikuwa unaenda wapi, haujui kwenu? Do not ask rhetoric questions because the child is already lost. Make the child comfortable. Number two, as a good Samaritan, sometimes because of our structure, you might find that the police station that you go to, before that, you must go to a police station to make a report that you have a child. If you get to that police station and you find that probably it's a police post that doesn't have capacity to hold the child overnight, then you will be allowed to go with the child back home, but at least you will have made a report. That report protects the child and protects you. Take a good image of the child, leave it to the police station, and for any other body that will need to use it, especially with the immediate clothing that the child is wearing, because that would be something that the parents on the other side will be looking out for and putting out in an alert and saying the child was last seen wearing this and the other. So other than that, I think just getting back to the main reporting structure where you went to the police station for follow-up, so that you also don't stay long enough with the child, and due procedure happens within the structure that will be able to have the child either placed in good government care or their family reunited with them faster.
I want to just close this conversation by talking about those children who are never reunited with their families, because there are those who are never, number one, there are those who are never found, and secondly, there are those who are found but then nobody claims them. So in terms of our agencies and security agencies, we're talking about the police and courts, are they doing a good job in investigating claims of missing children and prosecuting the kidnappers? The fact that there are organizations such as yours means obviously there's a gap. So let's talk about the gap that lies therein and what can be done.
I think first and foremost, we need to appreciate what the government is doing with the Department of Children's Services and also all the other CSOs that are working with children. I think there has been strides in terms of even our collaboration and how we work together to be able to ensure that all these children are found. But again, apart from what government is doing and the CSOs, it now boils down to awareness, the community itself, the public. And I think that's where we've had a lot of gaps. As CSOs, I know we work a lot with communities whom we consider to be the vulnerable, probably, and you'd find these are people who live probably in the low-income areas and that sort of things. But then I know when we talk to Marianne, she'll tell us that's not the only group where we find children missing. We also have children missing from the middle-income brackets and also the high-income brackets. But looking at these two groups, how many of them know about child protection? How many have this information on how to go about protecting their children? And I think once the public is educated and they are aware, then some of these challenges that we face, we can be able to fill in the gaps. The other challenge we have is that it's very interesting because Kenya is normally a source where children are picked and they are taken to other countries. For example, they are taken to, and now we have the problem of children being taken to Somalia and being recruited into the armed groups. Some are even being taken to Yemen. Kenya is also at an area of transit. So you find that children come from Uganda, they pass through Busia, Kakamega, Nairobi. Either they are exploited within Nairobi or they are taken to Mombasa on their way to Yemen. At the same time, they even move from Ethiopia, coming to Kenya all the way to Tanzania to South Africa, just for exploitation. So I think, and that's why we are saying that it needs a lot of efforts, and the public need to be vigilant on some of these cases. For example, if you see a child who is a stranger in your neighborhood, then you need to raise an alarm. You need to find out who is this child. But as long as we keep to ourselves and don't have conversation and work together, then it will continue being a challenge.
On the same, Marianne?
I would look at it in terms of we would need a lot of interagency collaboration. There is the need to keep having the children back out in the media or in certain platforms to remind people that, hey, these children still need to get home. So it shouldn't be a process that just ends at they are in a government home. There should be continuous reunification efforts. And now that technology is here, it helps us mitigate a lot of the challenges we faced before. Before we had to physically go to certain places and photograph these children and look at one source of media, but with all the other platforms of media that are there, I would think it's time that all agencies embraced the technological angle of this, because it's going to get information faster and to the widest audience as possible, because the first 48 hours are very important when a child is missing. And even when they've been found and they need to be re-identified and reattached to their families, time also, when it passes, it has some psychological impact on the child. So that should be considered.
Right. And finally, what's the most effective, you talk about, modes and just how to use the media to help these children unite with their families. What's the most effective mode of communicating? I know there's WhatsApp groups. I've seen Facebook posts that have pictures of missing children. But which has been the most effective in reuniting these children with their families?
I think in our case, we have seen a lot of effort on social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter, especially because of the sharing aspect. When they enable people to share to a larger audience, then you find one person escalates it to more people. Bulletins have worked, and we're also investigating how to manage areas where there's that technological challenge. For instance, some people don't have phones or mobile phones. So we're also trying to look at how to set up physical notice boards, like the ones that normally have job adverts, so that people can use such places as hubs. It's currently working well within Kibera and Makadara Children's Court, and we hope it will help mitigate the challenge of areas where there's no technological advances.
Okay, ladies, I thank you so much for your time. As you've had from Marianne and Irene here, the first 48 hours, very crucial, and the need for public awareness, for the need for the public to be vigilant, to just be aware of your surroundings and look at anything odd that might be going on in your neighborhood, or perhaps, anywhere where you spot a child that looks unfamiliar to that particular territory. We thank you so much for your time, ladies. Irene Wali, Child Protection Specialist, Save the Children, and Mariana Munyendo, who is the founder, Missing Child Kenya. Once again, just talking about the twin boy that was reunited with his family after going missing on Monday at the Kenyatta National Hospital. We are happy to report that a suspect is currently in custody. The lady that was found with the child at the time he was found. We will continue with this conversation in subsequent bulletins, definitely. Our apologies. The father of the child was not able to join us this evening, but now you know how to keep your children or your child safe, and therefore let's keep our children safe. My name is Lilian Muli. Thanks for watching. Good night.